Introduction. Told in a French Garden by Mildred Aldrich. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Told in a French Garden by Mildred Aldrich. Introduction. How we came into the garden. It was by a strange irony of fate that we found ourselves reunited for a summer's outing in a French garden in July, 1914. With the exception of the youngster, we had hardly met since the days of our youth. We were a party of unattached people, 6 men, 2 women, your humble servant, and the youngster, who was an outsider. With the exception of the latter, we had all gone to school or college or dancing class together, and kept up a sort of superficial acquaintance ever since, that sort of relation in which people know something of one another's opinions, and absolutely nothing of one another's real lives. There was the doctor, who had studied long in Germany, and became an authority on mental diseases, developed a distaste for therapeutics, and a passion for research in the laboratory. There was the lawyer, who knew international law as he knew his Greek alphabet, and hated a courtroom. There was the violinist, who was known the world over in musical sets, everywhere except in the concert room. There was the journalist, who had traveled into almost as many queer places as Richard Burton, seen more wars, and followed more callings. There was the sculptor, the fame of whose greater father had almost paralyzed a pair of good modeler's hands. There was the critic, whose friends believed that in him the world had lost a great romancer, but whom a combination of hunger and laziness, and a proneness to think that nothing but genius was worth while, had condemned to be a mere breadwinner, but a breadwinner who squeezed a lot out of life, and who fervently believed that in his next incarnation he would really be it. Then there was me, and of the other 2 women, one was a trained nurse and the other a divorcée, and well, none of us really knew just what she had become, but we knew that she was very rich and very handsome, and had a leaning towards some sort of new religion. As for the youngster, he was the son of an old chum of the doctor, his ward in fact, and his hobby was flying. Our reunion after so many years was a rather pretty story. In the summer of 1913 the doctor and the divorcée, who had lost sight of one another for 20 years, met by chance in Paris. Her ex-husband had been a college friend of the doctor. They saw a great deal of one another in the lazy way that people who really love France and are done sight-seeing can do. One day it occurred to them to take a day's trip into the country, as unattached people now and then can do. They might have gone out in a car, but they chose the railroad, with a walk at the end, on the principle that no one can know and love a country who does not press its earth beneath his feet. The doctor would probably have said, lay his head upon its bosom. By accident they missed a train. They found themselves at sunset of a beautiful day in a small village, and with no possible way of getting back to Paris that night, unless they chose to walk 15 miles to the nearest railway junction. After a long day's tramp, that seemed too much of a good thing. So they looked about to find a shelter for the night. The village, it was only a hamlet, had no hotel, no café even. Finally an old peasant said that old Mother Servin, a widow, living a mile up the road, had a big house, lived alone, and could take them in, if she wanted to. He could not say that she would. It seemed to them worth trying, so they started off in high spirits to tramp another mile, deciding that, if worst became worst, well, the night was warm, they could sleep by the roadside under the stars. It was near the hour when it should have been dark, but in France at that season one can almost read out of doors until 9. When they found the place, with some delay the gate in the stone wall was opened, and they were face to face with the old widow. It was a long argument, but the doctor had a winning way, and at the end they were taken in. More, they were fed in the big clean kitchen, and then each was sheltered in a huge room with cement floor, scrupulously clean, with the quaint old furniture and the queer appointments of a French farmhouse. The next morning, when the doctor threw open the heavy wooden shutters to his window, he gave a whistle of delight to find himself looking out into what seemed to be a French paradise, and better than that he had never asked. It was a wilderness. Way off in the distance he got glimpses of broken walls with all kinds of green things creeping and climbing and hanging on for life. Inside the walls there was a riot of flowers, hollyhocks and giroflées, dahlias and phlox, poppies and huge daisies, and roses everywhere, even climbing old tree trunks, and sprawling all over the garden front of the rambling house. The edges of the paths had green borders that told of corbeilles d'argent in midwinter, and violets in early spring. He leaned out and looked along the house. It was just a jumble of all sorts of buildings, which had evidently been added at different times. It seemed to be on half a dozen elevations, and no 2 windows were of the same size, while here and there an outside staircase led up into a loft.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?